While the following video does not contain story spoilers for the Indigo Disc, they do contain story spoilers for the Teal Mask, and they do also contain a important asset that has been data mined from the Scarlet and Violet games for Indigo Disc. So with that in mind, viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about the Loyal 3 and their mysterious fourth member, as well as some more mysteries surrounding this fourth member and the Loyal 3 themselves. But first, we obviously need to talk about what we know about the Loyal 3. Well, the Loyal 3 may not even be from Kitakami. In fact, it's implied that they aren't. When it talks about Ogerpon's backstory, it talks about how it and its trainer, or its friend rather, is they were well known for their masks. In fact, their masks spread across the world, like the details of them and how beautiful they were, and that attracted attention, both positive and negative. And some of this negative attention came from the Loyal 3, as well as a fourth Pokemon that we can kind of see in this image when we're being told this backstory, and they end up coming to Kitakami to steal the masks. Now, the Loyal 3 do successfully steal the masks, 3 of them at least: the Hearthflame mask, the Wellspring mask, and the Cornerstone mask. But of course, they leave behind the Teal mask. They are not able to grab that one. Well, Ogerpon, when it gets home and sees its mask has been stolen, and also there was signs of a struggle, it comes into Kitakami, or rather into Masui Town, and defeats the Loyal 3. In fact, he doesn't just defeat them, he kills them. It talks about how the people believe they laid down their lives to protect the village. So basically, these Pokemon, they straight up die. But the interesting thing is, when we're told this, we see the Loyal 3 defeated, but we don't see anything about that fourth Pokemon. So seemingly this Pokemon was not killed. In fact, also these 3 Pokemon were honored. They're called the Loyal 3, not the Loyal 4. So it's implied that this Pokemon was separate from this event. He wasn't there, or perhaps he wasn't around at that moment, or didn't get killed. Maybe he was hiding, I don't know. The point is that he did not fall with the Loyal 3. So flash forward to many years later, when you, the player character, arrive in Kitakami and are, going on your little adventure. Well, Kieran is upset that you and Carmine decide to keep something a secret from him, and he ends up punching the shrine of the Loyal 3. And when he does this, the Loyal 3 come back to life. So, what the heck happened? Well, an amazing theorist and an amazing friend of mine, Kayla's Capsule, pointed out that for a brief moment, you can see this purple glow around Kieran's fist when this happens. Upon further breaking this down, another incredible person in the community, Poke Sutami, pointed out that this actually doesn't come from Kieran, and it doesn't just appear. It seems to move from the shrine up Kieran's sleeve, so like it's going into Kieran. Furthermore, in this scene where the Loyal 3 are being resurrected, there is this purple aura all around, and again, for a brief moment, you can even see the toxic chains forming like on the statues of the Loyal 3 that were built in dedication to them. So this, to me, implies that it is the power of the toxic chain that brought these Pokemon back to life, which is a little weird because, when we think of, like, resurrection, we're thinking, like, magical properties. It's kind of ironic, right? Like, poison is something that, toxicity is something that kills people, and yet we're seeing it used here to bring people back to life. But either way, it seems that the toxic chain does have some kind of magical properties. So what do we know about this toxic chain? And well, the answer is not much at all, but there are clues in Kitakami that we can kind of use to piece a story together. So first off, if you look at the several different signs around Kitakami that depict the story of the Ogre and the Loyal 3, you will see the Loyal 3 depicted with a trainer character here, and the Loyal 3 do not have their toxic chains on here. You can very clearly tell they do not have it on. If there's any doubt, at least look at Okidogi. He doesn't have the toxic chain, stringing off from his neck like a leash, right? Furthermore, their dex entries say that the Pokemon have their abilities enhanced by the toxic chain. Pheasantipity is made more beautiful by the toxic chain. Okidogi is made stronger by the toxic chain. It is like enhancing his muscles. And then Monkey Dory, same thing. It's enhancing his brain power. So he is getting smarter and wiser from this toxic chain. We even know from information that we get from the villagers throughout the story that these Pokemon were not always this way. Okidogi was weak. Monkey Dory was unintelligent. Pheasantipity was really ugly and had like bad plumage. And these toxic chains granted them these abilities, is what's being implied here by this Pokedex. Back to the sign, the trainer that is depicted on here seems to have the toxic chain. If you look, there's something stringing from like his pocket or his belt, right? And that looks very similar to the toxic chain. If you look at the classifications of the Loyal 3, they are called the Retainer Pokemon. Now, Retainer means a servant or someone who is serving someone. So the question is, if all 3 of these Pokemon are the Retainers, well, where's the master? Who are they serving? And it's very likely this trainer. We even have attention brought to this trainer by people in Kitakami. They will say, you know, hey, there's a trainer on the picture, but we don't know anything about him. And that's kind of it for us, unless you look at real world inspiration, because this whole story that we see in the Teal Mask is based off of an actual story, or at least is like an allusion to a story, and that is Momotaro, or the Peach Boy. And what I mean by this being an allusion is this story is not remotely one for one. You have to think of it kind of like Once Upon a Time, if anybody's seen that show, where they kind of twist characters around. Like, they're classic fairy tale characters, but they're nothing like how they are in the original fairy tales. Some Disney movies even do this too. Like, Frozen is based off of the story of the Ice Queen, but it is very different. Princess and the Frog, she doesn't turn into a frog and go on a quest with her frog prince in the original story. No, that was just Disney changing it up to make the story a little different, but it still is an allusion to that original story. That's what we're seeing here with Momotaro. In Momotaro, the pheasant, the dog, and the monkey are actually all good guys, and they are very clearly not in the story of the Teal Mask. So again, it's all an illusion. But we have to go back to that thing about Momotaro being the Peach Boy. If you look, this mysterious new Pokemon seems to resemble a peach. Furthermore, there is a plush of it that you can even kind of get some text about that is sitting at the store Peachy's in Mossweed Town. So it's called Peachy's, and it has this plush there. They're very much hammering home that this Pokemon is a peach, which would make it the Momotaro of the story. It is the allusion to Momotaro. In fact, this is further backed up by there being data for an asset called Doku Taro in the Indigo Disc, and Doku Taro literally is coming from Momotaro, and then Doku means poison, so it is literally Poison Momotaro. And it's very likely going to be a Pokemon, and it's very likely going to be this little guy. Now, in the story, Momotaro, of course, works with these 3 animals, the pheasant, the dog, and the monkey, to defeat the Oni, or, you know, in this case, the ogre, to steal its treasure. Well, that's not exactly how the story fully goes, because Momotaro has to convince these animals to help him. And to do this, he has to bribe them with dumplings. He basically says, hey, you know, if you help me out, I've got some yummy dumplings that you can have. And they're like, absolutely, we're in. And so they help out. So it's very likely that this Momotaro stand-in, this Peach Pokemon, has bribed the Loyal 3 into helping him steal the masks from Ogerpon. You know, Ogerpon being the Oni, the masks being the treasure, the Loyal 3 being the animals, and then this Peach Pokemon being Momotaro. But what did he bribe him with? Well, again, it talks about how Monkey Dory, Okidogi, and Pheasantipity all wished for, you know, beauty, strength, wisdom, and so that is what he bribed them with. He's like, hey, well, you know, I have this chain. It can kind of do anything, and so I'm going to give you a piece of that chain, and it will allow you to be beautiful, to be stronger, to be wiser. And that's exactly what he does. And it's not that hard to believe. I mean, if this toxic chain can be involved with the resurrection of the dead, then I have no issue believing that this toxic chain could also be involved with granting wishes, right? I mean, you know, I feel like something that could raise the dead up could maybe look a little pretty, or maybe make me a little smarter, or make me a little stronger. This would also explain why the toxic chain kind of looks like a separate part of the design of the Loyal 3, right? Like, it doesn't actually look like it's a part of them. It looks like it's an accessory to them, very similar to Tinkaton's hammer, or even the leak of Farfetch'd. You know, that's not actually the Pokemon. That is just a weapon or an accessory that they are always carrying around. That's what the toxic chain is. That's why it looks so different on these Pokemon, with like the one exception being Pheasantipity. But even then too, you can see it's something that's around Pheasantipity, not a part of its body. And that's where we get back to Kieran's story and see how he ties into this. Throughout the story, Kieran is just, you know, he's a shy kid, he's a nervous kid, and he's also a sweet kid, you know? Like, he talks about how, you know, everybody fears the ogre, but, you know, I want to befriend it, you know, and I don't think he really is all that bad. He says things like this throughout the story, and it all culminates with him finding out that you're lying to him. He gets upset about that. You know, he thought you were his one friend, and then he goes and punches the shrine, and you see that little pink aura go into him. And ever since then, he seems to get a little darker. He seems to not really be Kieran. He is so intent on beating you. He isn't very shy anymore. He says things with a bit of confidence to him. He even, despite talking through this whole story about how much he loves the ogre, even demands, no, I get that Ogre Palm wants to go with the player character, but I don't want that. I'm the one who talked about this ogre. I'm the one who's been obsessed with it, so I get him. I should be able to get the ogre. And he even challenges you to a battle, and it's like, if I win, I get the Ogre Palm. And he admits, I know this is selfish, but I get the Ogre Pawn if I win. So, not very true to Kieran's character, right? And it's because he is under the influence of something. He is, whatever that thing was that went up him, that's when he started to change. He is under something's influence. I don't think this is full possession, but it's just something kind of influencing a little bit. Think about like the little devil on the shoulder that you see in cartoons, right? Like, that's kind of what's happening here. Yet the interesting thing about this would suggest that if Kieran is getting influenced by this thing, then perhaps there's more to the Loyal 3 story, because Kieran also wishes for something. He wishes to be stronger, and it seems like he's going to succeed, because if you look at the one of the recent trailers we've received for the Indigo Disc, they kind of tease the champion of the Blueberry Elite Four, and it's very clearly Kieran. It has Kieran's jacket, Kieran's little gold what is it, like, I guess a fanny pack? I don't know. His little bag, he has that too. It's very clearly Kieran. So he succeeds in his mission. He talks about how he's not that strong in battles, but clearly he gets that strong because he becomes the Blueberry champion. And so we see something granting his wish, but also it's taking a toll on him. You know, that it's like that whole be careful what you wish for thing. Yes, he is getting stronger, but at a price. He's also kind of losing himself a little bit. He's not the same sweet, caring kid that he once was. Likewise, maybe the Loyal 3 were this way too. Maybe they once actually were good Pokemon, and, you know, upon getting the Toxic Chain, they too started to get a little influenced into the wrong path. And maybe we'll see this all culminate in Indigo Disc. We do have like these masks in the teal mask that looks very similar to the Loyal 3, but it's not the Loyal 3. It's, you know, it's they don't look like that. So maybe we will see in the Indigo Disc these Pokemon be able to access a terrestrial state, very similar to how Ogerpon can access a terrestrial state, that look like these, and it's basically them breaking free of the Toxic Chain and becoming these hero Pokemon. So very likely the type that they would Terra into would be the type that is not poison, so it would be fighting for Okidogi, psychic for Munkidori, and Pheasantipity would be fairy, which is also kind of symbolic in that way too. Munkidori doesn't need the Toxic Chain to be this really wise, really smart psychic type Pokemon. Pheasantipity will still have the fairy type when it breaks free of the chain. It will still be beautiful. So I don't know, I think that would be very symbolic. It would be a, you know, nice message, because at the end of the day, Pokemon is a game that's rated E for everyone. You got to have some kind of message towards the kids, right? You know, and that message can be, hey, if a demonic Pokemon ever grants you a wish, you don't need him. I guess. So that brings us back around to this fourth Pokemon, and we gotta predict its typing here. Well, the poison type seems kind of obvious. If it is able to extend a piece of itself, the toxic chain, onto other people and other Pokemon, it's gonna be a poison type. And in fact, this actually works really well because if it is a Peach Pokemon, Peach pits are actually, they contain compounds of cyanide, so they actually are poisonous. Don't worry though, if you've ever eaten a peach pit, you have to eat a lot of them for they to have the same effect as cyanide. But they, you know, that makes this poison typing on it make sense. But it's gonna have a second type too, and I think that type is very likely going to be the ghost type. And the reason for this is, for one, because if it's able to influence people, if it's able to kind of move into people and able to raise things from the dead, that just all seems very connected to the ghost types. You know, I'm thinking about like possession and infestation, and then also just, you know, raising things from the dead. All of that seems very ghostly. And then you also do have the fact that if you look at the lanterns that are seen at Kitakami Hall, all of the typings are represented by a Pokemon there. You have the poison typings being on the Loyal 3, and you even have their fighting typings, their psychic typings, and their fairy typings being represented there. Ogerpon with his grass, rock, water, and fire typings being represented there. But then there's a ghost type, and none of these Pokemon are ghost type or have a form that is ghost type, at least not yet, so it's very likely that this Peach Pokemon is going to be that, which would be very cool, by the way, because our only other poison ghost type is Gengar, so that's kind of cool that we're getting another one after 26, 7 years, a long time, after a long time. But yeah, be sure to let me know what you think of this theory. Do you think that the Loyal 3 actually were good at one point? Do you think that it is the toxic chain that was able to resurrect them? And do you think Kieran is maybe under its influence now? Let me know all that in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss all of our future videos. And until next time, I will see all of you later.